I want to follow up on your 999 plan for economic growth. That's a 9%. Well, they seem to already know what it is, but for the few who don't, it's a 9% flat corporate tax, a 9% flat income tax, and a new 9% national sales tax. Now, conservatives usually say, repeal the income tax before you impose a new tax. Isn't there a danger with your 999 plan with these three taxes that some government down the road after President Kane is going to increase three forms of taxation on Americans?
No, there's no danger in that. And first, let me answer Dave's question with the 999 plan. Unfortunately, nobody up here answered this question. He wanted to know, as a small businessman, what are we going to do in order to help him as a small business person? I have walked in Dave's shoes. This economy is on life support. That's why my 999 plan is a bold solution. It starts with throw out the current tax code and pass the 9% business flat tax, the 9% personal income tax, and the 9% national sales tax. This is the most important part. It eliminates or replaces corporate income tax, personal income tax, capital gains tax, as well as the estate tax. Then it treats all businesses the same. And the people who are paying only payroll tax, 15.3, that 15.3 they don't have to pay. Now they only have to pay that 9%. And unlike Governor Romney's plan, my plan throws out the old one. He's still hooked to the current tax code. That dog won't hunt.
If your name is mentioned in an answer, you get 30 seconds to respond. Governor Romney.
That's fine. I put my plan out. I want to make it very clear that my intent is to help the people who've been most hurt by President Obama's economy. And the people who've been most hurt are the middle-income families of America. And that's why my plan says that if middle-income families want to save their money, anybody earning under $200,000, and not pay any taxes on interest, dividends, or capital gains. Zero tax on their savings. That's the plan I'm for, and I'll get that done in my first year. Thank you.
Congressman Paul, I want to show you the video that got the most votes of all the video questions submitted to YouTube, and this one comes, as you can see, from Brandy and Michael in Spencer, Indiana.
There's growing concern among Americans about the size and the scope of the federal government and its infringement upon state and individual rights.
If you're elected president, how do you plan to restore the 10th Amendment, hold the federal government only to those enumerated powers in the Constitution, and allow states to govern themselves?
Congressman, what's your answer for Brandy and Michael?
Well, obviously it would take more than one individual, but the responsibility of the president would be to veto every single bill that violates the 10th Amendment. That would be the solution.
Anything else there? You got a little time left.
Well, I'll tell you what, that is the subject that is crucial because government is too big in Washington, D.C. It's run away. We have no controls of spending, taxes, regulations, no control in the Federal Reserve printing money. So if we want government, whether it's medical care or whatever, it's proper to do it at the local level as well as our schools. But there is no authority in the Constitution to do so much of what we're doing. There's no authority for them to run our schools, no authority to control our economy, and no authority to control us as individuals on what we do with our personal lives.
Thank you, Congressman.
Okay, we got to the full answer there at the end. Governor Johnson, same question to you about the 10th Amendment. With this added, you are an outspoken libertarian. What makes you a better choice for libertarian Republicans than Congressman Paul?
I'm not going to presume to make that assumption, but I would like to say that I do bring a unique perspective to this stage. I started a one-man handyman business in Albuquerque in 1974 and grew it to over 1,000 employees. I have run for 2 political offices in my life, governor of New Mexico and re-election. I promised to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013. I promise to veto legislation where expenditures exceed revenue. And if anybody doubts my willingness to veto bills, I think I vetoed more bills than any governor in the history of the United States. I think I vetoed more bills than all the other governors in the country combined. Add to that throwing out the entire federal tax system and replacing it with a consumption tax, the fair tax, which would absolutely reboot the American economy because it does away with the corporate tax to create tens of millions of jobs in this country.
Governor Johnson, thank you. We'll be coming back to the issue of the economy throughout this debate tonight. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we'll also be checking in with our own Shannon Bream throughout the night to get real-time updates from people watching. Shannon.
Hi, Brett. Well, this is the most interactive debate ever, and it's thanks to our partner, Google. You can go to youtube.com/Fox News. What happens there is folks can see the debate streaming live, but also to the right of the screen, all night long, we are sending out questions so we can get your answers at home, and you can participate and weigh in. Brett, a little bit earlier, asked Governor Romney how he defines rich. It's a question we put to folks out on the internet as well, and we've got the results. Here's the question. I define rich as someone having an annual income higher than $100,000, 13% of you weighed in there. $250,000, 22%. $500,000, 22%, and the majority went with $1 million annual income. That defines you as rich. 44% of those who voted. We'll be going through all kinds of polls and data on the commercials. Join us at youtube.com/Fox News. Brett, back to you.
Thanks, Shannon. After the break, we will be tackling foreign policy, government spending. Shannon will have more on that, too, and also the issue of immigration. Now, here for a preview of what's to come, let's take a look at what's called a word cloud. It shows the words that were used most often in all the questions you asked about immigration. The bigger the word, the more often it was used. The biggest word in this cloud, as you can see, is illegal. Back after a short break.
Thank you so much for joining our debate coverage here on youtube.com/Fox News. I am joined by a couple of folks, pros, to help us break down the information that you're sending us by being so interactive online. We've got Steve Grove, who is the head of news and politics for Google and YouTube, breaking down all kinds of raw data for us. And for analysis, you recognize him from Power Play Live every day. He's our digital politics editor, Chris Stirewalt. Gentlemen, thank you. Let's get right to it. All right. First of all, what we're talking about is candidate names and questions about foreign policy. Tell us what you've analyzed.
Here's what, Shannon, we took a look at all the questions submitted about the foreign policy issue and said which candidate's name was mentioned most in a question about foreign policy. As you see on the graphic behind you, Ron Paul, far and away the candidate who gets the most mentions when it comes to foreign policy questions.
All right, so with that data in mind, Chris, that seems to be the issue he likes to talk about the most.
Well, let me say one thing first about that. Ron Paul just blew up the spot. He just blew up the entire debate. With that answer on the 10th Amendment, he blew it up. So what you see in this poll is this. Folks at home, I'm sure what's going on right now, they said, I love what that guy just said. I mean, he spoke to the heart of the Republican issue right now, and they say, I love what that guy just said. But then, later in this debate, Ron Paul is going to say something about foreign policy that's going to have those same Republicans that got all fired up about that answer go, nukes for Iran do what? And they're going to back off a little bit. So it's the double-edged sword for Congressman Paul. There's a lot of support in those 79, but I bet a lot of the people have concerns because they like his domestic message, but it's harder for Republicans who like a strong defense to take it the other way.
Yeah, they want to get some answers from him. All right, you also looked at another hot topic and how that relates to candidate names as well.
We looked at health care, actually. And you can see behind you, Mitt Romney in this category mentioned most when viewers are asking questions about health care, far and away more than the other candidates.
Yeah, and Chris, not a surprise there. He's got a lot of questions to answer about Romney Care. It's going to continue to come up. How well has he been handling it so far?
Well, look, you know, he needs a conservative answer on Romney Care. This is a conservative party. It's a conservative primary. The early states are conservative. He needs an answer that enthuses conservatives. Now, you see Governor Romney coming out. He's blazing a little bit. You saw his first answers. He wants to engage. He wants to be tough. He hasn't taken any shots at Rick Perry yet. That's coming, I promise. But right now, he's trying to set himself up as a tough guy with a little swagger of his own. But eventually, he has to pair that with an answer on his Massachusetts healthcare law that includes a government mandate to purchase private health insurance or be enrolled in a government program that sounds good to conservatives. The closest he can come is saying, let's get rid of the freeloaders and force people to pay their fair share.
All right, and very quickly, we want to get to something called a word cloud. Steve, tell us what it is and what you looked at, and Chris, we'll get your reaction.
Word cloud is a visualization of all the words submitted on a certain topic. The bigger the word, the more often it was mentioned. This word cloud behind you is all the words submitted around Rick Perry's name in the questions. The bigger words here are the questions that, or the words rather, that people use the most when they ask a question for Rick Perry.
All right, Chris, you got a lot to work with there.
Texas. That's
it's
what
big.
You see back there. It's big, and that's big. Rick Perry's first answer was basically, what are you going to do about jobs? Texas. It's basically a one-word answer. I did it there. I can do it in America.
All right, back to Brett and the debates.
Good evening. I'm Florida Governor Rick Scott. Because of Florida's size and diversity, our state represents the very pulse of our great nation. Not only will Florida be a must-win for a Republican to be our party's nominee, Florida is a must-win on the road to the White House. It is my belief that the next president will be the candidate who both articulates a plan for getting America's economy back on the right track and inspires confidence in the hearts and minds of all Americans. Good luck to all the candidates. This debate is a partnership with Fox News and Google. I thank the men and women of Fox News and Google for choosing Florida, and I thank all of you for being part of this exciting event.
Thank you, Governor Scott, and welcome back to Orlando, Florida, and the Republican presidential debate. My colleague Megyn Kelly will take us through the next round of questions on government spending and debt.
Thanks, Brett. Governor Perry, Governor Romney has been hammering you on your idea of turning Social Security back to the states repeatedly. Can you explain specifically how 50 separate Social Security systems are supposed to work?
Well, let me just say first, for those people that are on Social Security today, for those people that are approaching Social Security, they don't have anything in the world to worry about. We have made a solemn oath to the people of this country that Social Security program in place today will be there for them. Now, it's not the first time that Mitt's been wrong on some issues before. And the bottom line is we never said that we were going to move this back to the states. What we said was we ought to have as one of the options the state employees and the state retirees, they being able to go off of the current system onto one that the states would operate themselves. As a matter of fact, in Massachusetts, his home state, almost 96% of the people who are on that program, retirees and state people, are off of the Social Security program. So having that option out there to have the states, Louisiana does it, almost every state has their state employees and the retirees that are options to go off of Social Security. That makes sense. It's an option that we should have.
Governor Romney, you're satisfied with that?
Well, it's different than what the governor put in his book just 6 months ago, and what you said on your interviews following the book. So I don't know. There's a Rick Perry out there that's saying that almost to quote, it says that the federal government shouldn't be in the pension business, that it's unconstitutional, and it should be returned to the states. So you better find that Rick Perry and get him to stop saying that. Now, my own view is that we have to make it very, very clear that Social Security is a responsibility of the federal government, not the state governments. We're going to have one plan, and we're going to make sure that it's fiscally sound and stable. And I'm absolutely committed to keeping Social Security working. I put in my book that I wrote a couple of years ago a plan for how we can do that to make sure Social Security is stable, not just for the next 25 years, but for the next 75. Thank you.
And I would like to respond to that.
Go ahead, Governor Perry.
Speaking of books and talking about being able to have things in your books and back and forth, and your economic advisor talked about Romneycare and how that was an absolute bust, and it was exactly what Obamacare was all about. As a matter of fact, between books, your hard copy book, you said that it was exactly what the American people needed to have that Romneycare given to them as you had in Massachusetts. Then in your paperback, you took that line out. So speaking of not getting it straight in your book, sir, that wouldn't be a good one.